Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
Todd might not tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what you need to hear. And all you got to do is listen.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Marijuana Law Podcast. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, Attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting. A whisper to a scream from the middle of the Black Diamond Group mothership in the middle of a green nutrient field with my good friend Craig Russell, the Muscle. Craig, I've said it before. The sky is blue, water is wet, and I love you. How you doing, Craig Russell?
That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So strange, but I'm doing good, man. Doing good.
It's a poem for you I wrote, bro. It's a poem.
Okay. First full real weekend of summer, and it just keeps raining. Is it ever going to stop raining, man? Seriously.
It is never going to stop raining, and that's why we're playing Whisper to a Scream. I just want to scream out loud right now. It's just driving me crazy. That's a great song, by the way.
Oh, it is. Great song. That should be one of the hallmarks of our 80s dance party.
That together with Kip Winger's Down Incognito, which we're going to destroy next week here in the mothership, but definitely Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream, picked out today by the one and only Vincenzo Kate, who's in the mothership and will be coming on the show. And by the way, prior to coming on the air, we were playing the Down Incognito by Winger.
Okay.
And I was doing some air guitar.
All right.
And literally, Vinny's sitting across from me in the mothership, and he's watching my fingers, like he's watching what notes I'm playing. And he goes, Levitt, I go, what? He goes, you're a full octane off. I mean, I've never had anybody criticize my air guitar playing. And
wait, a full octane off? What are you, gasoline?
Wait, a full
octave is what you...
Well, see, it goes to show you, I don't know what I'm talking about. Here, bring Vinny on. Vinny, first, and I had no idea that he plays the violin and whatnot.
Okay.
And he's into big band music. He's only, 18, 19 years old? And he's Dave Cate, one of my best friend's son. That's why he's always with us. And he's on my mountain bike team, and we're about to shred the nard today with big hair.
Sure.
So, Vinny, what was going on with my playing skills there? And albeit it was doing the air guitar.
Pretty much, I would say that your left hand was definitely a little off by being an octave too high. Your right hand, real good strumming fingers. I definitely feel like if you had a guitar in your hand, you definitely play some notes. May not be the right ones, but they would work. Comes to the violin, seems like you have very good form. So I give it all good.
The air violin.
Air violin? You weren't playing the air guitar? It's totally different.
The air violin and the air guitar.
Oh, okay. Well, all right then. That's fine, I guess. What are you up to, Vinny?
Do you play any air instruments?
Do I play any air instruments? Mm-hmm. I play the air drums.
You play the air drums?
Very badly. I'm terrible at it.
Talent for that.
No, it's terrible. How you doing, Vinny Kate? How's life?
Pretty good. How about you?
Being a high school graduate now, how you doing, man?
I mean, pretty much wake up and do the same exact thing every day. Either wake up and go and ride, or wake up and go to work. Pretty much, I hope I wake up and eat food every single day. That's all that I'm hoping.
As long as you wake up, man, that's all that really matters. But hey, well, we're glad you're with us here in the mothership. Where'd you guys just come from there, Vinny Kate?
We just came back from Marquette from a big mountain biking camp. Huge mountain biking camp.
Is that the Marcy Giesick or whatever it's called?
Yeah, the Margie Giesick camp.
Margie Giesick, that's it. There you go. Marcy Giesick. I don't even know what I'm talking about. How'd you guys?
I mean, you
how'd you do?
had it.
I kind of, yeah. How'd you guys do? Did you guys do good?
Oh yeah, real good. Real difficult challenge, but you know, it was a mental challenge for all of us to get through, and I definitely feel like we all did. We're all ready for Margie, so.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. So you're going to be talking to us in the mothership today about some things, including the new recreational state. Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
Yes, that is correct.
Sweet. We'll talk about that and some other stuff with Vinnie Kate. Hey, Todd, are you there on the mothership? Are you still with us here?
Craig, I'm back,
Okay.
and I was just gathering up some information here because we have a huge show. Vinny's going to be huge. Big Hair is going to be joining us, I think, in the last segment. This is the show before our July 4th show.
That's right.
Vinny is in a mothership. As he said, we just got back from a mountain bike camp up in the great state of Superior, in which his dad was one of the leading instructors, Dave Kate. But, hey, so we've got some information. You have some information that we're going to be talking about in regards to Illinois becoming the 11th state to legalize recreational marijuana. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I know Vinny wanted to talk about that too. He had some stuff to talk about there. And what else do we have to talk about on the show today?
We have some information on some Michigan's Good Samaritan Law that came forth as House Bill number 5649 before it became law, which is now law, in regards to individuals who are seeking medical attention for themselves or for another individual, and that individual has been in possession or has used certain types of narcotics. And so what will happen to that individual who takes the person to the hospital? So unfortunately, if you're an individual out there and you are using a certain type of drug and someone you're with becomes ill and you take that person to the hospital for care, should you or should you not be charged with certain types of crimes for saving someone's life? And so that's where the Good Samaritan Law comes in. And back to basics, if you give the finger to an officer, should you be arrested and or ticketed? And where does the First Amendment come into play and the Fourth Amendment? So we have some information regarding that issue.
We got a jam-packed show, man. How are we going to be able to fit this all in about 45 minutes? You going to be able to do this?
We're definitely going to figure it out. But as far as our 1980s dance party,
okay,
no, we are not playing the Village People at the party. It is not happening. I'm getting all these crazy requests. No Village People so far on the list. No disco. No, line dancing, square dancing. This is 1980s, but you want to know something, Craig?
What?
I've been listening to some 90s music, and there's some music that has bled over into the 90s that may be appropriate at the 1980s dance party. I'm just saying.
Are we going to have to change the name to the 1980s and 1990s dance party, maybe?
I don't know. I don't think people will know the difference if we play something from 1991. We're definitely opening up with Prince, though. We know that for a fact. We've already decided that. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today, this thing called life, electric life.
Do you have any complaints?
Well, those are the right words, by the way?
Yeah, those are the right words. You're exactly right.
What were you going to ask me?
I was going to say, do you have any complaints this week? I find it hard to believe you don't.
I have a huge frickin' complaint.
Okay.
When somebody borrows your truck, a.k.a. young man sitting next to me and other people of similar ages, you got to move the seat back to the original position it was. I'm 6 feet 1, 220. When someone gets in my truck, and Vinny, how tall are you?
5'9".
5'9", borrows Todd's truck to go somewhere. It's very uncomfortable trying to squeeze back in with the steering wheel, sticking right into your noggin. So that's my complaint, folks. So tell your kids, tell your loved ones or friends and family, whoever borrows your vehicle, put the seat back where it belongs.
I'll even go one farther. Not only that, you know what? If you go drive my car around for a couple hundred miles, put some gas in it when you come back and leave the radio alone. If you're going to play your radio or play your music or whatever, put it at least back to one of the stations that I sort of had it on. Don't do this leaving it on whatever you want and leaving me with an empty tank. That's the last time you'll borrow my car. Child.
Yeah. Also, make sure you always have a full tank in case you got to bug out. I always keep my tank full. I'm just saying, for the record. I mean, if you need to get somewhere and society breaks down and there's no gas or electricity available, you need a full tank of gas. So,
by the way, you expecting society to break down anytime soon?
Seriously, Craig? Come on.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
I know.
All right. Hey, by the way, big shout out before we go to break to Paula and Rhonda at the B&B gas station in Houghton Lake. We were on our way up to the great state of Superior last week. We pull into the B&B gas station, and they have 98.5 WUPS playing, as they always do, and they always should, and so should everybody else. And our commercial came on.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I recognize that voice.
Hey, this is a
I had to buy a round of water for everybody after that. So there was no alcohol, so I had to buy a round of coffee, tea for one lady, and water for the rest of the attendants that had to put up with a commercial.
I totally get that. But good. Congratulations for them. They've got good taste listening to 98.5. Plus, you can podcast this show anywhere in the world. We're on iHeart. We're on YouTube. We're on podcast. We're on Podbean. We're on SoundCloud. We're on TuneIn. You name it. Libsyn. You can find us all over where you get your podcasts. I've got some interesting podcasting news to tell you about a little bit here when the show gets on. But we should really go to break. We'll be back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show when we're right back. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting. Birds fly, whisper to a scream. Craig Russell, the sky is blue, the water is wet, and we love you. That should be the water is wet, the sky is blue, and we love you.
Sure, okay, fine.
Whatever, I know. But that's a great song.
It's a great song. No, great song. That's Icicle Works, is it not? Isn't that who does Whisper?
It is Icicle Works, it is. Yeah. And Vinnie, out of my large categories of music that I like to play on the show, picked that one out for the listeners today.
That's crazy. That song's got to be twice as old as Vinnie is.
Vinnie literally listens to 1940s big band music. I'm not kidding you. He was playing the Andrews Sisters on his iPod. No joke. You could talk to him all about it. He knows all the big band players, what the music is. He's a crooner, a swooner. He's going to be the 1980s dance party. He's got hair like Elvis and moves like Jagger. That's all I got to say. Actually, I don't know. Hey, we are a radio station. I had to throw
God.
But let's get Vinnie on the show. He's got some. Let's get Vinnie back in the mothership on the show here. He wants to chime in on Illinois becoming the 11th state to legalize recreational marijuana. Thank you. And as I've referred to it my entire life, Illinois. So hold on. Here's Vinnie.
Sure, Todd. That is normal for you be able to read a word and be able to pronounce it right. I prefer to call it Illinois before Illinois. Kind of like Arkansas, better than Arkansas, because it just mixes it up a little bit.
Oh, Vinnie Kate. Hey, before we get into this Illinois thing and the recreational marijuana stuff, so let's talk a little bit about this big band music you like. Who's your favorite big band musician?
Bing Crosby.
Bing Crosby. Wow, that is crazy. That is crazy. How old are you, Vinnie Kate? You're 18?
19. 19?
Still. 19.
Yeah,
that stuff is like 6-7 times older than you are. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I definitely prefer the 40s over our generation.
Do you ever think about how interesting it would have been to live back then?
That's what I'm saying. That's the question I get every single day. Just because of, everyone back then, they were so nice. They cared about each other. Americans love to be Americans. Love to give their life away going to war or even be back on the home front. supporting the villages with food and whatnot.
And there wasn't social media to ruin everything.
Exactly.
Ruin everything. Everyone was a lot nicer. I just saw a new study that says 84% of Americans think people are angrier nowadays. And part of the reason is because we get mad at the news, and then we also vent our frustrations on social media. The internet, albeit it is a beautiful thing, trust me, you wouldn't be able to hear this show outside of Michigan because of the podcast and everything if it wasn't for technology and the internet. But on the other hand, maybe we'd be better off without it sometimes.
Yeah, indeed. I do agree with you there.
So let's talk about Illinois. Illinois stepped up to the plate and has become the 11th state to legalize recreational marijuana. Give us the pertinent poop about that, Vinnie Kate.
Well, it is a lot like the legalization compared to Michigan, but slight changes, I would say. Illinois does have a lot lower amounts of possession that you can legally own. When it comes to plants, medical patients would be permitted to buy marijuana seeds to grow up to 5 plants at home, so as long as those plants are kept out of public view, just like every other legalized state. Compared to Michigan's 12 plants, which you are able to possess and own as long as they're out of public view.
So now to jump back a little bit and to see how they got to this point, this was the governor was this was one of his campaign promises was he was going to legalize it. Did they have a vote like in Michigan? Was it a proposition and that people had to vote on, or did he just do it?
It was a purchase and proposition of recreational marijuana. So it was all a vote.
So they did have a popular vote and it was voted in.
Yes.
Okay. So, because I know that was the governor who's become the governor in the last year, and I'd have to look up what his name is because I forget what it is. But he said that was one of his big campaign promises was he's going to legalize it. They're going to find out in Illinois, just like we found out in Michigan, just like people in Colorado found out, just like in California. There's not only are there a ton of people who have been arrested in the last 3-4 years who might have their records expunged, but on top of it, they're going to find out they're going to make a lot of money off this.
Oh, yeah. A lot of money. And that's definitely why I am very happy that Illinois is coming out with, they give facts right as the bill passed about how marijuana and cannabis products will be taxed. Okay. Instead of covering it up and waiting, they are saying that cannabis products with the THC level below or 35% is a 10% tax. 20% tax on any cannabis-infused products that, such as like oils. Okay. 25% tax on cannabis and THC levels above 35%. So if it's below 35%, 10% tax. If it's above 35%, 25% tax, which I definitely like how they're getting the word out already. And, they want to be able to help the community by giving more tax money back.
And I think that's not only is that great, but I think they're also going to find probably some of the things that some of the issues that we're having in Michigan. It also sounds like they're ready to go a little quicker, or they're going to be ready to go much quicker than Michigan. Michigan's kind of, drug its heels. Of course, they say by the fall, there's going to be recreational dispensaries open. Illinois sounds like they're already kind of moving ahead with that pretty quick, aren't they?
So, Craig, you want to hear something?
Sure.
Todd did mention upon this subject of, according to the Marijuana Policy Project, around 770,000 cannabis-related cases are eligible for expungement.
I know, isn't that really, that's interesting. And they've already, it still took Michigan a lot longer to get to this point than it seemed to. It seems like in Illinois they were maybe set up for this a little better, even though we've had medicinal marijuana in Michigan a lot longer. It seems like they're just moving a lot quicker along, it seems like.
Especially when it comes to the court.
And on top of it, it also looks like they're going to be giving vendor preferences to minority owners, which has been another big sticking point in a lot of states where people are, like in Michigan, there's only a handful of minority people who are going to be able to be vendors who are going to be able to do dispensaries. And it's a disproportionate number of minorities as opposed to others. It looks like they're really going to do a better job of spreading the wealth out, so to speak, in Illinois as well.
I definitely see that as long as you. The wealth definitely will be spread evenly throughout how they're basing it out now.
Because Illinois, Michigan has, Detroit and then a bunch of other smaller types. Illinois is Chicago and a whole lot of smaller towns. There's a little bit around St. Louis, but for the most part, Illinois. And I think that's going to end up speeding up some of the other states in the area around Illinois, possibly Missouri, which already has medicinal marijuana on the books. I think some of these other states around, Michigan is kind of its own little island. Other than Ohio and Indiana, we don't really have a whole lot of shared space with other states. Illinois is right in the middle of like 7 other states. I bet you this starts to speed things up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it's going to spread. Definitely going to spread. I mean, we got to have more people figure out it's not bad.
And I think they're going to do that. I think that's what it's going to be. There's a lot of people in Illinois who are big. This has become a big deal too. So
Can you ask me that again?
It says here, residents of Illinois may purchase and possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana at a time. Non-residents can have a half an ounce. Can purchase.
Yeah.
Is that unusual? Or is that normal for everywhere else that non-residents can buy marijuana the same as state residents? So Todd, I'm looking at this thing about Illinois, and it says here that Illinois residents are going to be able to purchase up to 1 ounce of marijuana at a time, and non-residents are going to be able to purchase at least a half an ounce, and they're going to start selling it in January of 2020, January 1st. I mean, this is like in less than 6 months. Is that a big deal? Is that something that they do in other states that sell cannabis? Can they sell to non-residents who you would think in theory are going to then take it back to their states, which recreational marijuana might not be legal in?
That's the issue, Craig. So, for instance, if somebody purchases cannabis products in Illinois and then transports it back to Indiana, which borders Illinois right there to the south along I-94, Indiana, has very strict rules against possessing cannabis. Yeah, you're going to get yourself in a lot of freaking trouble. But there are a lot of states around the country where they are recognizing other states' medical marijuana cards. So, it's state by state. You just have to check with the state in which you live in. But I would be very careful purchasing products in one state and transporting it across state lines, not knowing what the laws are in the state in which you're traveling to or through.
Yeah, I would say you'd want to be careful. Let's say you're going from Illinois back to Michigan, but you're going through Indiana. Man, I would maybe purchase and use that in Illinois, and then when you get back to Michigan, purchase your own, and I wouldn't bring anything through because you're asking for trouble if you don't.
And here's the other issue. You could go from Ohio to Michigan, participate in recreational cannabis. I mean, who's going to stop you?
Nobody.
You come into the state, it's legal, you're 21 and over. You come into the state, somebody shares product with you. They don't sell it to you, but they share product with you. You get behind the wheel. One, you could be pulled over in the state of Michigan and charged and convicted of operating with the presence of a controlled substance. And you could drive back to your own state and get pulled over in that state and charged with laws that are similar. So you just have to be careful. Alcohol is legal everywhere, yet you cannot operate a motor vehicle with an alcohol level of 0.08 or higher, or at least in the state of Michigan, if you're under 21, we have a zero tolerance law. So you just have to be smart about it, know the laws, know what your rights are, and listen to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show and podcast, and stay tuned because we'll inform you. And, of course, if you have any legal questions about any of this stuff, Todd is the guy to talk to, 989-772-6000, or Todd Levitt Law Show at gmail.com. You can email, you can call Todd's office. If you have any questions, hey, I'm getting ready to go from Mount Pleasant and I'm going to Illinois, or I'm going to another state where it's legal and they want to bring some back or something, Todd can tell you exactly what's happening. And he'll probably only charge you a couple of $100 an hour to do so. No, come on, brother. Come on now. I know you wouldn't do that. I knew you'd do that. Hey, when we come back, we will talk more about some of this cannabis stuff, including also some podcasting numbers that I think are very interesting that I think you would want to know about having to do with this show. So we'll be right back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email Todd Levitt Law Show at gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast. Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting with Vincenzo Kate in the mothership. Vinny's just a great guy. We always love having him in the mothership. And Big Hair is going to be joining us in studio shortly. We're going to get to an issue in regards to a traffic stop whereby an individual gave an officer the bird and got stopped. And this person then brought forth a federal lawsuit. And what do you think the outcome is in that case, Craig? We're going to talk about that and some information on the Good Samaritan laws out there that are existing, which are trying to save lives. But you had some podcasting information for us.
Yes, I did. I saw an interesting article a couple of days ago. Did you know that since the beginning of this year, so 2019, we're almost 7 full months into 2019, there were over 706,000 separate podcasts out there on the internet that you could choose from to listen to. 706,000 different podcasts. Think about that for a second. That's
insane.
That means there's a podcast for every person in Kent County, which is where Grand Rapids is. It's about the same population, 706,000. Now, mind you, nearly 75% of those 706,000, so we're talking roughly about 540,000, have only had one episode published since the beginning of the year. So on any given basis, there's only about 200,000 podcasts that have regular updates to them where they do. You know, some people, unlike us, we do a podcast every single week. We do the radio show every single week. Sometimes there are people who start a podcast, they'll do 1 or 2 episodes, and then they're done. You don't ever hear from it again. And a lot of times it's not celebrities, it's just any, Tom, Dick, or Harry who thinks they're doing a podcast. We have been doing this. How long have we been doing this show? How long has it been podcasting for now?
A couple of years now, but you just threw me off with Tom, Dick, and Harry. If my name was Tom, Dick, or Harry, how would you like your name used in that figure of speech? And it reminds me of the crack of dawn. I have a lot of friends named Dawn. I have nothing but respect for Dawn. Same thing. It's like Alan Wrench. If anything, I'd like a wrench named after me. I mean, who is this guy Alan? And why is it a mailbox? It's always a mailbox, okay? I'm just saying. But hey, Craig.
Hey, Todd.
I have a case here to talk about.
Okay.
We have a situation where a driver was pulled over for speeding.
Okay.
And after that citation was issued, she raised her middle finger at the officer, which, again, look, I have a lot of friends who support law enforcement. They put their lives on the line every single day. Not necessary. Do not do that.
No, it's not a good idea.
But that's just my opinion. And then the officer then pulled her over a second time, 100 yards from the initial stop, and amended the citation to a speeding violation. So he pulls her over once. The first situation is done. She drives off, flips the bird. He pulls her over a second time. She then files a civil action in federal court under 42 U.S.C. 1983. And I read the case alleging the officer violated her First and Fourth Amendment rights by stopping her, not the first time, but a second time, and amending that citation after the second time after she raised her middle finger at him. Now, the officer, through his attorneys, moved to dismiss these actions based on qualified immunity, which protects police officers from personal liability unless they violate, a person's clearly established constitutional or statutory rights. So what do you think the District Court and Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on the officer's claim of qualified immunity?
I would have to say that she's allowed to do that, but he should have probably written a different ticket if he was going to write a ticket at all. He shouldn't have amended the one that he first wrote. He should have given her some other kind of citation, but I don't know. Boy, that's a tough one. What do you think?
So you're saying that he had a right to pull her over after the first stop ended. This is what you're saying. And given her a different type of citation other than a speeding ticket. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that, yeah, because her giving him the middle finger isn't speeding. That's nothing to do with that. But is that being disrespectful to a police officer? Is that resisting? Is that causing some kind of issue like that? Possibly. I mean,
well, let's talk about this. Okay. I like your analysis, but let's talk about the Fourth Amendment rights here.
All right.
Okay. And the court, according to my interpretation, explained in their opinion that the authority to seize the driver, thus the Fourth Amendment, in connection with the speeding violation ended when the first stop was concluded, and there was no dispute that the driver was again seized when the officer pulled her over a second time. She wasn't speeding a second time. And he amended it to a speeding ticket. So the court held that the officer clearly lacked authority to make the second stop in the absence of a new violation of law.
Correct.
So again, under the Fourth Amendment, he had no right to seize her person as she drove off because she wasn't speeding. She flipped him the bird. And absence any new violation of law, the court ruled that the officer clearly lacked the authority. Now let's talk about some of the other issues. Now, the court did mention that the gesture, while crude, did not violate any identified law or create probable cause or reasonable suspicion that the driver violated any other law. And thus, accordingly, the officer was not entitled to qualified immunity for the claim that he unreasonably seized the driver in violation of that Fourth Amendment, Craig. But now the First Amendment, the court explained that they did talk about retaliation, and to prove a claim of retaliation for engaging in an expressive gesture under the First Amendment's free speech clause, the driver, she would have to show that she engaged in protected conduct, and the officer took an adverse action against her that would deter an ordinary person from continuing that protected conduct, and the officer was motivated by that conduct, at least in part. But the court held that any reasonable officer would know that a citizen who raises his or her finger engages in speech protected by the First Amendment and seizing that person, Craig, without proper justification to thus issue a more severe citation is wrong. So as a result, the officer was not entitled basically to the qualified immunity because, again, look, there are a number of cases where an individual interferes with an officer in his or her duty as an officer, whereby an officer is investigating an individual. The officer is clearly identified as an officer in uniform and verbal commands, and then the individual clearly disobeys those commands. Now, that individual can be charged with anywhere from resisting, obstructing, the duty of an officer, fleeing and eluding. There's other statutes and city ordinances throughout the country that apply to that. But in this case, the first stop ended. She drove away, wasn't speeding, flipped the officer the bird. Thus, he stops her, gives her a ticket for speeding. She wasn't speeding. The first action ended, and so this lady's prevailing.
Yeah, she's winning the case, I'm guessing, and probably.
Well, it's moving forward,
yeah.
Right? And so, again, this is just my personal opinion. Everybody out there has a right to, freedom of speech. And there's different forms of expressing your First Amendment rights. I mean, we love the Constitution. We're big Second Amendment guys here on the show. We say it week in and week out. We love the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, all the amendments. We love the Constitution, period. But, I say, just treat each other with respect.
And you probably need to treat
catch more bees with honey. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because if in fact sorry to interrupt you, but if in fact you receive a citation, a misdemeanor, or any other type of infraction from an officer, a misdemeanor is not an infraction, but a civil infraction. If you cooperate, you have a right to remain silent. You should use it. Absolutely. Yep. You have a right to an attorney. You have a right to seek that attorney and talk to that attorney. But in the big picture of things, as a defense attorney of 25 years, 12 in Detroit, it does help me help my clients if they cooperated to a certain extent but showed respect to the officer. You don't have to, squeak like a bird, chirp, 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 chirp. You don't have to, chirp away and make admissions of fact or acknowledge any admissions of guilt. Provide documentation. Here's my driver's license. Keep your hands on the wheel. Follow commands. You don't have to acknowledge anything that will implicate you. I mean, you have a right against self-incrimination, and you have a right to an attorney. But with that being said, as a defense attorney, when I go to court and I read the police report, it does help in negotiating if my client is guilty and I don't have any defenses to go to trial, to work out a deal with the prosecutor and be able to say, hey, look, my client cooperated. She didn't give the officer a hard time. The officer even mentioned it in the police report. That helps in many circumstances.
My question is, though, Why did she flip him off to begin with? Just to be a jerk? Or was there some reason? Did he pull her over? Was she going 3 miles over? Was she going 28 and a 25? And that's why she did it? Was there some rationale? Or did she actually do something wrong, go 50 and a 25 and deserve to get
what happened was, originally, because I read the case, and you can look it up online, folks, but originally she was speeding, but the officer lowered the citation. So when she drove away and he pulled her over a second time, he amended it to the higher speed. See, that in itself is, as far as I'm concerned, is improper. And the courts forget the fact that she flipped the officer the bird. Let's say the officer, as the individual was pulling away, said, I shouldn't have reduced that. I'm going to pull that individual over again. The first incident ended. The person was allowed to leave the scene. The officer had no right to amend that ticket either way. I
agree. I think that, maybe she used some bad judgment there, but nothing worth getting that ticket amended for. And it's a good thing that, that's power to the people. That's proof right there that, the law enforcement, although they do a great job, and it's a terrible job to do, it's a thankless job, but sometimes they can abuse that power a little bit, and the average person can stand up and say, no, that's not right. I have the First Amendment on my side, and even though it might not have been necessarily the most respectful thing in the world, it's nothing worth being able to pull me over and give me a bigger sentence for just because of that.
Yeah. And folks, you also have the Fifth Amendment on your side, the right against self-incrimination. You have the right to remain silent, and damn it, use it.
Yeah.
You can cooperate to a certain level, but, I do these retail fraud cases all the time. First of all, I don't want anybody stealing out there, but, you have these compliance officers, security compliance officers at, Walmart and Meijer and Kohl's and other stores, and they'll catch someone on camera, they'll detain that individual, and in some states they do have the legal authority to detain individuals for a short period of time until law enforcement arrives. And then they'll ask the individual to write out a statement. You don't have to write that statement out. You don't have to say a darn thing to anybody. You are innocent till proven guilty, not guilty till proven innocent. So, be sure if a lot of good people make poor decisions, poor choices. Most of my clients, if not all of them, are great people who made poor choices, poor decisions. We all have. But you have constitutional rights out there, so you definitely need to know what they are and exercise them. Now, we're going to be talking with Big Hair in a moment, Craig, about the Good Samaritan Law.
Yeah.
That's a lot of states are passing these laws. So, for instance, with the opiate epidemic, with heroin and meth and everything else taking place out there, there's people dying all over this country and all over the world. So if you live in a state such as Michigan and there's 2 individuals or more individuals who are participating in this drug interactions and one or more of the individuals become ill, the Good Samaritan Law will allow the other individuals to take those individuals to the hospital without fear of prosecution. We're trying to save lives here, and so kudos to Michigan and other states for passing this legislation that protects individuals who are maybe in possession of illegal narcotics, who have ingested illegal narcotics, and they're trying to save their friend's life or loved one by taking that person to emergency. So let's say you take someone to emergency and the hospital staff takes the individual and wheels that person, into the back room. You're standing there, you're intoxicated. It's obviously you're intoxicated. Law enforcement arrives. They started asking you questions, start to investigate you. They determine you have illegal narcotics on your person and your vehicle. They get a warrant to search your house or apartment. You're not charged with all these serious felonies, and you're looking at going to jail or even prison. These Good Samaritan laws may protect you in certain circumstances.
So we will talk to Big Hair about that coming up in the last segment of the show. We've got to take a break. We'll be right back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
stolen in the sight of love. We are but your children, finding our way around indecision. We are ever helpless. Take us forever, a whisper to a scream.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Coming back strong once again, Craig Russell with Whisper to a Scream. That's a great song. Definitely going to be playing at the 1980s dance party we're throwing sometime in the next year.
The 1980s and 1990s dance party, as we've already determined now, we might have to throw some 90s stuff in there. But no disco, and especially not for Big Hair. No square dancing. Big Hair's in the house.
Big Hair.
Hey guys, good morning. How you guys doing today?
You ever been
Big Hair.
You been square dancing before, Big Hair?
Well, I guess that's what you wanted to call it. I used to work at some church camps back in the day, and they tried teaching us square dancing.
Yeah,
so yes,
no square
somewhat.
dancing. No square
dancing. No disco. No, and no Village People at the 1980s / borderline 1990s dance party. We're opening up with Prince at that party. But Big Hair, we've had a great show. Vinnie, Kate's in the mothership. You're back. We're always mentioning you on the show. Last week, you and I shredded DTE Energy Trail. And I got to admit, your spin classes are working because you led the pack. You were unbelievably fast. We averaged about, 9.5 miles an hour over 18 miles of, 2,500 feet of climbing. And then I get in my truck and I'm following you out of there on M52 heading north. And you're driving a Prius with your mountain bike on the back. Not very manly, but it looked okay. And you're even more aggressive at driving. I mean, you used to drive like a turtle. I was almost breaking the law trying to keep up with you in that Prius.
Well,
those spin classes work. You're more aggressive in every facet of your life, my friend.
Well, my big complaint, though, driving that Prius at that speed, it drops me down to a horrible 45 miles a gallon.
Oh, rough life.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Man, that's terrible. If you took your flannel off, maybe it would get a little bit less wind resistance. You get a little better gas mileage. Just saying.
Big Hair has a complaint, and nobody knows Big Hair's real name except those of us who know who Big Hair is. But he's got a great complaint about his neighbor, don't you, Big Hair?
Oh, just huge complaint, And I know we've talked about this before. We've talked about mowing grass. I love to mow grass. I love to get out there on my big zero turn and just spray the grass around the yard. And I like to keep my yard neat. And it makes my yard look good. It also makes the area look well. It keeps the value of my neighbor's properties up. But I witnessed here on Friday is my neighbor across the street. They mowed their yard. This is the first time living in the city that I have ever seen a hayfield. The whole yard looked like a darn hayfield. They're probably going to be out here this morning baling it. It's that bad.
Yeah, I've seen a picture of it. It looks like a farm field. I mean, they mowed the lawn and you don't see any grass. All you see is 2 feet of hay in each direction. But
hey, so Big Hair, this show, the next time we're on, it'll be after the 4th of July. You got any big 4th of July plans there with you and Mrs. Big Hair?
Well, we're going to load up
hair.
We're going to load up the fifth wheel. We're going to load up the generator, and we're going to go to the great state of Superior, out in the middle of nowhere. We're going to find a river someplace and just hopefully just a 2-tracker that goes back someplace, and just back the fifth wheel in there and just kick back for 4 straight days.
Are you going to shoot off any legal fireworks while you're back there, Big Hair? You strike me as being a fireworks kind of guy.
No, probably not. I'll watch them if they're around, but I'll be taking my dog with me, and he doesn't care for fireworks.
Time out, Big Hair.
Todd's got to say.
Hold on. I've spent a lot of years with Big Hair. I'm out there throwing M80s, all the legal, monster devices in a very safe manner. And 2 years ago, Big Hair asked me if I had any sparkles. So I gave him a sparkler, and that was about the extent of his fireworks. A colored sparkler. So Big Hair, all masculine, looks like Bob Seger. Big burly guy, does have a truck. like sparklers on the 4th of July. So big hair, come clean.
That's a great country we live in. You can celebrate however you so desire. That's what it is.
Exactly.
So,
Sparklers.
Sparklers, big M80s, doesn't matter. Todd, what are your big 4th of July plans? What are you doing?
I'm going to the great state of Superior with Big Hair and his hairy wife, Mrs. Big Hair. That's what I'm doing. Right here on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We're just light in the mothership today because it's full of nutrients and things are a little wet and it's not good. The rain is not good for the crops, but a little too much rain going on here. But it's
good
going to be.
fun.
We want everybody to have a great, safe travel.
That's right. Have a safe trip. Don't drink and drive. Make sure you don't drink
and drive.
Don't drink and use any outdoor vehicles, anything like that, any off-road vehicles. Keep everybody safe. The one good thing about the rain, it shouldn't start a whole lot of any kind of fires or anything if any stray fireworks go off. It's been so wet lately.
It's not good for the hemp farming, Craig.
I know, but it probably will be good.
Too much rain is not good for the hemp farming. I'm just saying it's legal now. I'm not happy about that.
When those people are shooting off their illegal fireworks in your neighborhood the night after 4th of July, at least there probably won't be any wildfires started or anything like that. But hey, we got to get going. Todd, the show is over. Big Hair, thanks for coming in, being part of the last segment of the show. Have a happy 4th of July. And
you guys too as well. I'm planning on getting out of here right after the show, and I'm on my way back down to DTE for a couple of rounds. It's going to beat me up down there. I love DTE. It's a great workout, and just love the exercise, and looking forward to get back down there again.
Thanks to Vinnie Kate as well for being on the show. Todd, show's over. We got to go.
Show's over. We got to go. We're going to end it like 1980s dance party. Take us out. I'm not just a litigator. I'm an advocator. We'll see you same place, same time next week on the Todd Levitt Law Show. Take us out, Craig.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Mallywell Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, Roofing, and Attic Installation of Midland, Mackinac Properties and Northern Michigan Vacation Rentals, buying, selling, and renting properties in the Straits of Mackinac region since 1998, Tim's Collision Plus in Roscommon, Harrison Power Sports, Central Michigan's fastest-growing full-line Arctic Cat dealer, and Dr. Robert Townsend and Denali Healthcare for your alternative healthcare needs.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.